Hello, everyone. This is Gunjan Bagla of Amritt, and I'm here with my friend John James, based in just outside of Seattle. John and I have known each other for about 7 years, and we're going to have a little conversation about international business. So thank you, John, for making time for us.
Thank
Tell
you,
us a
Gunjan.
little, yeah, yeah. Tell us a little bit about your first experience with international business. How did it come about? What happened?
Yeah, I think my first, well, probably 25 years ago, I was working with companies that were based in Sweden with the heavy truck market and dealing with, um, managing conversations back and forth about product expectations. And most of my career has been spent in product development. But I think really the first, in terms of selling products in a international market, was really with a medical device company or medical education company called Sawbones, where we had quite a big international presence and quite a lot of product in Europe. And so we had an office based in Sweden. And I got to travel to a couple of trade shows in Europe and help educate customers on our products and our services, and it was quite interesting because people already knew the product very well. I think a lot of times because in our case, people had spent time in the U.S. Either through education, so we're exposed to our product. So the big challenge was really, a lot of it came down to how do you get product in the customer's hands. So we had people wanted our product. It was more of a challenge of how do you get it to them.
Yeah. The logistics of getting product in their hands, and the international customs and freight and all of that can be an issue, absolutely. And so, which countries did you travel to throughout your career?
At that time, I was in Sweden and Brussels and Italy, and probably the most notable was I traveled to Japan. This would have been about 2016 or 17, something like that. And we had a presence in Japan, but it wasn't very strong. Or I didn't feel it was as strong as it could be. And so we decided to go to a trade show, a convention, and I was the president of the company at the time and decided to accompany our lead salesperson. And it really made a big impact to our customers and prospective customers that as the president, I made the commitment to travel there. And I think what came out of that was that it was super important to support the customer with not just a warranty, but the assurance that if they put their trust in our products, and that if they had a problem, that they had an avenue to reach out to get a resolution, whether it was the product didn't perform the way they expected, or maybe there was a manufacturing defect of some sort. But when I got back, I had emails from customers saying, thank you for coming to visit our country. We love your product, and we just want to know, will you be there to support us? And of course, my response was, I won't be there to support you, but our team will. Right. And so it was amazing. Just going and visiting and making some personal connections gave people that confidence that there's a company, a face, a reputation on the other side in a different country. And I think that's what all of us, expect when we buy products out of another country. We want that confidence that there's a company standing behind that product.
Right, absolutely. I think for American companies that have been focused primarily on the domestic market, we are so used to a uniform culture, relatively speaking, and the fact that that we have a relatively common set of laws and practices that many companies, when they go internationally, they feel like this is just incremental revenue and they don't want to invest that time and effort that you just described. And it makes such a difference to customers anywhere, whether it is Asia or Europe. So thank you for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about, for people, executives like you who might have traveled overseas as tourists, but not for business. What is different about going to a country, many time zones away? What do you have to do to prepare, and how is the experience of traveling internationally and then working there, whether it's for a trade show or a customer meeting?
I think that the difference, and I've done both. I've traveled for pleasure and I've traveled for business. I think that when you travel for pleasure, you're there to experience a different culture. And I think when you travel for business, I mean, you're still going to experience the culture, but I think you have to be a lot more prepared to understand the cultural differences in how business is done. For example, going to Japan, it's very important to understand cultural norms with, how you present your business card and how you, address potential customers. And understanding some of the nuances with, how conversations are going to take place. And so it's different. It's both. They're both experiential, but one, I think you have to do more of your homework, and you can't just be there to learn. You have to be there prepared. And so it's rewarding if you're curious. You have to be curious about other cultures, and we all live in different parts of the world. We all have different cultural norms, and you have to be respectful. It's very important. Very important.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that point up, because very often we feel that American culture dominates the world, and just because we can stay at a Hyatt in another country and use FedEx to ship things there, and they use Google, we think that maybe they'll function the same way as we do. And of course, as you know, nothing could be further from the truth. So the preparation aspect is so important. I tell my clients, 90% of the work when you travel is actually done before you board the airplane. And the actual trip is only 10% of the final effort. So yeah, very much so. That's been my experience 20 years running this company. And it doesn't matter which country you go to, whether it's Europe or Asia or another part of the world. Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody is starting out doing business internationally, there's an executive, maybe you're on a flight from Seattle to Chicago, and the person sitting next to you says, hey, I'm thinking about doing business in Asia. In the few minutes you have to share with them some tips, what would you tell them?
Well, I think if you start with the premise that your product has a need in that country, it has to have a need. You won't get very far without that. But if the product has a need, I think you have to address all of those logistic things. How are you going to get the product there? How are you going to make it cost effective for your end customer to get the product? When you're shipping low dollar items, to say $100 or price point around there, sometimes shipping can be more than that just to get the product there. So you either have to look at shipping bulk, those kinds of things. So you have to look at making the buying process easy. You don't want customers to have to jump through a lot of hoops to get the product there. And you want to make it relatively timely, because we all expect things to be there the next day. We've all been spoiled with next day delivery. So that logistics part is super important. And then I think backing up the product, as I talked about earlier, with technical support, with customer service, with ensuring that people can believe when they put their trust in you that you'll be there to support the product is really important. And if you can deliver on those things, assuming you have a good product and it has a need, then I think you can be successful.
So tell us a little bit about how you would provide support in a country remote from the United States. There may be some war stories that you have to share.
It all comes down to, I think you have to have someone who understands the country, the culture, and can help bridge the two cultures, the two countries together. It's really a daunting process to try to do some of that on your own. So you have to have, again, it comes down to finding a trusted partner that could be someone in the country who already understands your product and wants to help promote. We've had that experience, and that can be very successful. It can be finding somebody such as Amritt to help bridge that gap and carry you through that process. It's a journey. You know where you want to get to. Everybody can define where they want to get to. The challenge is how you're going to get there. And there's a lot of steps and a lot of pitfalls, and it can be very challenging to navigate those waters. And you want to get there as fast as possible, right? We all want to make our products successful in another country, and you want to get through that journey as quickly as possible and get those products into people's hands where they can be best used.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for that insight. Can you tell us a little more about challenges that somebody might encounter in doing business in another country? And if you want to focus on some examples, that's fine. If you want to talk generally, that's fine as well.
I mean, certainly, I think the biggest challenge that I've seen is it comes down to time zone challenges. We're so used to in America that business gets done 9 to 5. And of course, pretty much anywhere in Europe, Asia, et cetera, those don't work very well.
Right.
And so having somehow solving that problem where, because you can do quite a bit on email, but anymore people want to use WhatsApp and things like that. And, the reality is customers want, relatively quick communications. And a lot of times the best way to handle that is kind of like we're doing now with a video chat, where you get to see someone's face, you get to establish a little bit of rapport. And so when things have gone wrong, or they take longer, or there's pitfalls with, customers not getting the right product, most of the time it's because of communication issues. And if you can get on the phone, even if there's language barriers, if you can get on the phone on it, especially a video where you can see people's emotions, you can understand, you read the body language, even if you don't speak the same language, you can read the body language and help. You get to a much quicker understanding what it's going to take to solve the problem and get a resolution. And when you get that resolution for a customer, again, you start to build that trust back up, and they come back to you for more business. So most of the pitfalls I've seen are related to people want to rely on email too much. And email is very challenging, especially if you're trying to communicate English and the other person's, English isn't their primary language. And so written English is a challenge. But if you can get on the phone and talk things through, especially a video call, you can really help build those relationships. And that's a lot of it. You have to be committed to, sometimes that means you have to make phone calls at midnight on American, West Coast time or East Coast time, because, it shouldn't be the customer that has to accommodate their schedules.
Right.
If you want to do business in another country, you have to make those commitments to adjust your own schedules. Find, sometimes you have to hire specific teams that want to work later in the evening or early in the morning so that they can be available for those. But it's very important, especially in the early once you get that trust established and get those relationships built, then of course you can rely on email because you already have that foundation. But in the early parts of relationships, you have to, if you can't do face-to-face in person, which is challenging with travel, we have these wonderful tools of Zoom and Teams and all that makes that function easier. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched upon communication and on email, and absolutely, I find that in international communication, you type one thing in email, and the reader at the other end may interpret it differently. You're trying to be friendly, and they think you're trying to be hostile. You're trying to be caring, and they miss that. And it's that emotional component, even in the toughest hard knocks kind of business. It's important to have that emotional connection with the client or the customer or the vendor sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. So like I specialize in US India business, and people assume that, most Indian professionals speak English. Well, they do, but they sometimes speak Indian English. And so on our website, we have a whole section called the Dictionary of Indian English, explaining terms that you might encounter only in your conversations with an Indian professional that they might use in email or other means. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So do you think it's possible in today's age with Zoom and WhatsApp and so on to conduct international business in a big way without traveling at all? What's your feeling?
My feeling is that you have to meet someone in person once. I don't think it's much more than once anymore. I used to say 3 or 4 visits in person was a foundation for building a relationship that then you could carry on. But anymore with the quality of video conferencing, I still feel that one visit is essential. And I just had I got to go introduce a new team member to some key clients just in the last few months. And we've been doing a lot of stuff on email and phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went and visited those customers in person.
Right.
And the person on the flight coming back told me, he said, John, he said, I feel like my relationship with these people is different. And he said, we've been emailing for several months. And I said, that's what having a face-to-face meeting does. You get to talk a little bit of, personal stuff maybe, or you get to share a little more just context with a dinner or something like that. Right. And it changes the connection. So I think in relationships that are very key, I think a face-to-face meeting is important. But definitely Zoom and Teams and things like that have minimized the overall need for that for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate your time and enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks.
Stop the recording.